Did you know that King George III and Queen Charlotte met for the very first time just 6 hours before their wedding? On September 8, 1761, 17-year-old Charlotte of Mecklenburg-Strelitz married 22-year-old George III. Like many royal marriages of the era, it was arranged for political reasons. Yet, despite beginning as strangers, the couple would go on to form a remarkably close bond. To mark the occasion, George presented Charlotte with an extraordinary collection of wedding jewelry. Alongside her wedding ring, he gifted her a pair of elaborate pearl bracelets. One bracelet contained a miniature portrait of the king himself. The other held a lock of his hair alongside a jeweled royal cipher. And what makes these gifts so fascinating is what happened afterward. Charlotte wore them constantly. Again and again, they appear in her portrait. In painting after painting, decades after the wedding, the bracelets are still there. Sometimes the king's miniature can be clearly seen. Other times, only a glimpse is visible beneath her sleeve or reflected in a mirror, but they never seem far away. In an age when portraits were carefully staged and every detail carried meaning, Charlotte's repeated choice to wear these bracelets was likely no accident. They became a public symbol of her affection for her husband, and there is evidence that those feelings were genuine. Many of the couple's letters survive, revealing a relationship filled with warmth, respect, and tenderness. In one letter written in 1797, nearly 36 years after their wedding, Charlotte thanked George for one of his affectionate messages. She wrote, "I have this instant been made very happy with your very affectionate and kind letter." Even after decades of marriage, their correspondence still carried the language of affection. Of course, their lives were far from perfect. George III suffered repeated episodes of severe mental illness that caused immense distress for both himself and his family. At times, his behavior became so alarming that many feared he would never recover. Yet throughout these crises, Charlotte remained devoted to him. When George experienced a significant recovery in 1789, Charlotte was overjoyed. To commemorate the occasion, she commissioned special medallions celebrating his return to health and distributed them among trusted members of the court. It was a deeply personal gesture that reflected her relief at having her husband back. And once again, around this same period, Charlotte continued to appear in portraits wearing those same wedding bracelets. Years passed, their family grew to 15 children. The king's health deteriorated further. Eventually, George became so ill that he no longer fully recognized those around him. But Charlotte never abandoned the symbols of their marriage. Even in later portraits, she continued wearing the jewelry he had given her as a young bride, a quiet reminder of a relationship that had lasted a lifetime. History is filled with royal marriages built on power, politics, and ambition. But the story of George III and Queen Charlotte appears to be something much rarer. A marriage that began as an arrangement and became a love story. And perhaps the most touching evidence of that love wasn't found in a palace or a letter, but in a pair of bracelets that Charlotte chose to wear for the rest of her life. And next, discover why Queen Charlotte refused to follow fashion trends and instead turned the English royal court into one of the most oddly dressed courts in Europe. If you enjoy the strange, beautiful, and unsettling side of history, make sure to subscribe